The Sharma house had never been truly silent. Even in the quietest hours, there was always a ceiling fan turning, a pipe creaking, or Mrs. Sharma muttering to herself about somebody leaving a spoon in the wrong place. But one night, around 1:40 a.m., the silence changed. It became heavy, wrong. The kind of silence that made even breathing feel loud. Neha was the first to notice. She had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water and stood frozen when she heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the cupboard under the sink. At first she thought it was rats. Then she heard a tiny voice. "Open the door." Neha nearly dropped the glass. She stared at the cupboard. The scratching stopped. Then came 3 soft knocks from inside the wooden door. 1, 2, 3. Her throat went dry. "Mummyji?" she whispered. From the hall, Mrs. Sharma's voice replied instantly, already awake, already suspicious. "Why are you calling me at this hour?" Neha backed away from the cupboard. "There's something in the kitchen." Mrs. Sharma appeared in a shawl, carrying a steel tumbler like she was prepared for battle. "Something? Or someone?" Neha pointed at the cupboard. "It spoke!" Mrs. Sharma narrowed her eyes. "You watch too many horror videos again." Before Neha could answer, the scratching started again, louder this time. Then the cupboard door pushed outward by itself, as if something small and strong was pressing from the inside. Mrs. Sharma stepped forward and yanked it open. Nothing. Only a few old utensils, a broken lid, and a faint smell of wet earth. But on the very back wall of the cupboard, carved into the wood in thin scratch marks, were 4 words. "Let me stay here." Mrs. Sharma frowned. "Rubbish!" Neha said nothing. She was staring at the floor. Tiny, muddy footprints had appeared beneath the cupboard. They were not adult footprints. They were small, child-sized, and they led out of the kitchen, all the way to the staircase. The next morning, the husband laughed nervously when he heard the story. "Maybe a kid entered through the back door." Mrs. Sharma crossed her arms. "No child in this house walks barefoot at midnight and leaves dirt only in one place." Neha wanted to argue, but then she remembered something else. The sound she had heard before the scratching stopped. It had not been a knock. It had been laughter. Very soft, very young. And somewhere deep in the house, from behind a closed door upstairs, came one tiny sound in reply. A child crying. By evening, the family had searched the whole house. They checked the guest room, the storeroom, the balcony, the laundry space, even the area behind the water tank. No child, no stranger, no open windows. Nothing. But the crying did not stop. It came and went in soft bursts, always from somewhere they could not place. Sometimes it sounded close to the stairs, sometimes it seemed to come from inside the walls. Once, just once, Neha heard it under her own bed. That was when Mrs. Sharma finally admitted, in a low voice, "This is not ordinary." She opened the old family prayer book. The husband lit incense. Neha stood in the hallway holding a flashlight, though the light seemed too weak to reach the corners. Mrs. Sharma suddenly stopped turning pages. "This house had a children's room once," she said slowly. Neha looked up. "What children's room?" Mrs. Sharma's face tightened. "Before I came here, long ago, my husband's younger sister was living here for a short time. There was an accident. The room was sealed after that." The husband stared. "Why are you telling us this now?" Mrs. Sharma looked uncomfortable, as if she had no intention of answering, but the words had already escaped. "Because I forgot." That was the first truly frightening thing she had said all day. They found the old door at the end of the upstairs corridor, hidden behind a wardrobe that no one had moved in years. Neha had never noticed it before. The wood looked newer than the walls around it, as if someone had kept replacing it over and over to hide age. The door had no handle, only a rusted keyhole. The crying was louder now. The husband stepped back. "We are not opening that!" But the wall beside the door suddenly knocked from the inside. 3 times. The family stumbled backward as the lock clicked by itself. The door swung inward. A cold smell rushed out. Damp cloth, old dust. And something else. Something sour. Something like forgotten toys left in a sealed box. Inside was a small room. Too small. Much smaller than the hallway suggested it should be. The ceiling was low. The corners were dark. And in the center sat a child's wooden cupboard, painted pale blue with one door half open. Neha's flashlight beam shook across the room. Inside the cupboard was a tiny mirror. And in the mirror, a child was sitting cross-legged. Not in the room, in the reflection. The child had a face too pale, eyes too black, and a smile that did not belong to any living thing. It looked up directly at Neha and waved. The husband whispered, "That's not possible." The reflection child opened its mouth. "Finally," it said, in a voice that sounded like many voices speaking through a small throat. "You came back." Mrs. Sharma dropped the tumbler. The child in the mirror tilted its head. "You forgot me." The room behind the family went colder. The bulb in the corridor flickered once, then died. In the darkness, a soft shape moved near the ceiling, crawling slowly, as if the room itself had become a skin. Neha grabbed her husband's arm. "Close the door!" But the child's reflection stood up. The mirror inside the cupboard cracked, and from the crack, a black hand reached out. Long, thin fingers, wet, shivering. Human, but not human. The husband slammed the door shut so hard the frame shook. Mrs. Sharma began reciting prayers under her breath, fast and trembling. The child inside banged on the other side, not with fists, but with something heavier, something impatient. Then, in a voice suddenly close to Neha's ear, the child whispered from nowhere at all, "Open the cupboard in your room." Neha went still. Her bedroom cupboard had been ajar all morning. They ran downstairs, refusing to go back upstairs alone. Mrs. Sharma made everyone sit in the living room while she tied a red thread around the front door handle and placed a bowl of salt near the staircase. She looked calmer now, but only because fear had burned itself into anger. "We will finish this tonight," she said. The husband wanted to leave the house and call someone, but the road outside had turned strangely quiet. No dogs, no neighbors, no passing scooters. Just darkness pressing against the windows. At 11:55 p.m., the power failed. At 12, the house smelled of wet earth. At 12:10, the crying returned. This time it came from Neha's bedroom cupboard. The husband refused to open it. Mrs. Sharma marched upstairs first, jaw set, carrying a brass lamp and her steel tumbler, like a priest and soldier combined. Neha followed, every step feeling heavier than the last. The cupboard door in her room was slightly open. Inside, clothes hung still and dark, but from the bottom shelf came a small tapping. Mrs. Sharma pulled the door wider. A child sat curled in the cupboard, knees to chest, face hidden by long wet hair. It wore an old school uniform, faded and stained. One shoe was missing. Neha's stomach dropped. The child slowly lifted its head. Its mouth was sewn shut with black thread. Its eyes opened very wide. And then, from inside the cupboard, another child's voice said softly, "I was never alone." The mirror on the inside of the cupboard door cracked all at once. The black hand returned. Then another. Then another. Not one child. Not one spirit. Dozens of tiny hands pushed out from the darkness behind the mirrored glass, clawing for the room, as if the cupboard had been built over something that had never stopped waiting. Mrs. Sharma screamed one word so fiercely it sounded like a command and a curse at once. "Out!" She threw the brass lamp into the cupboard. Flame burst. Smoke poured out. The sewing thread around the child's mouth snapped like dry hair. The mirror shattered. The room filled with shrieking, thin and high and inhuman, like glass being scraped by nails. The husband pulled Neha away as the cupboard trembled violently. The child stood up, now fully visible, and its face changed in the firelight. First sad, then angry, then unbearably old. "You locked me in," it hissed. "Now I stay in every cupboard." The room went silent. Then everything stopped. The fire died. The child vanished. The cupboard door fell open onto an empty shelf. By morning, the house seemed normal again. But the family found one final message scratched into the inside of the kitchen cupboard. Check the cupboard before you sleep. Mrs. Sharma covered it with prayer paper and said no one should ever open it again. Neha nodded. That night, before bed, she checked every cupboard in the house. Everyone was empty, except the one in her room. On the top shelf, neatly folded, was a tiny school shoe, and beside it, a note in childlike handwriting. I am still here.